I'm Chaos Garner, and you're listening to the Solo Nerdbird podcast. Today, I'll be speaking with writer c.solis and editor Aubrey Lyn Jeppson behind the A Flag to Fly comic series. Here to promote issue number
It's
two,
2 p.m. You're having a good day.
Marketplace
Want
Miss
to go for a walk?
now on Kickstarter until April 1st. So, welcome back, Chris. Welcome back, Aubrey.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Great to be back.
Excited to be back. Yeah. It was really fun to be on your show during while we were promoting Tales from the Cloakroom, which ended up being volume one. So I was excited when Chris mentioned we had a chance to come back.
Yeah, definitely keeping up with all the stuff you've done with Ari and everybody that we keep up with from that anthology. It's always great coming back on this show. I feel like it represents a lot of where we came from.
Mhm. Well, thank you for joining us again. But outside my introduction, and for new listeners, who is Chris or C. Solis and Aubrey Lyn Jeppson in their own words?
For sure. I'm Chris Elise, the writer, coming in later to comics. I was in music for a long time. I've done, full-on production work where I am building festivals, and I've also been in punk rock bands. And right now, I've just kind of gotten into writing comic books, with a bunch of stories, and just want to keep making more. Right now, I'm talking about A Flag to Fly, my YA kind of adventure story on Kickstarter, going into issue number 2, Marketplace Missteps. I really hope you guys will check it out.
Yeah, and I'm Aubrey Lyn Jeppson. I'm a comic book editor, and I also do lettering and some writing. Um, I started out as a writer like a lot of editors do, and I just thought, I really enjoy looking at the whole book, the script and everything. I like helping people. I like giving feedback. I had been working as kind of an assistant who did everything for my friend's startup. And she was like, "You're always really good about helping me like hone in my ideas and make them better." And like that really, I think it was almost like she gave me permission to be a comic editor, even though it was completely unrelated. It was like, yeah, I am good at that. So I kind of switched gears then. And then I just like doing lettering because I've been a hobbyist graphic designer since I was like 18. And I've done professional graphic design work on and off for like the last decade. And so it was easy to learn the skill set for lettering and just add that to my skill set. So I like doing both, especially because lettering is the last stop in comic creation. And it's one of the most, I mean, they're all important steps, but it is really important because like bad lettering can ruin good art in comics. And so, um, yeah, I think that helps me too as a comic book editor to kind of know that side of things. And as well, I try to acquaint myself with all steps of the process, but that's why I do it.
Mhm. I think it's interesting, Aubrey, how you mentioned, even though you weren't seeking the permission from your friend to get into editing, that her permission kind of like validated something you were already interested in. And it's like as artists, and maybe not even as artists, I think just as human beings, I guess being social creatures, we kind of do try to seek that validation in a way. I mean, even with you, Chris, like you dipped your toe in a bunch of different things, and then you say you come into comics later. So how did that work, with you? Like, did you were you already dabbling in it, and then like somebody said, "Hey, you should really get more into this," or did something happen where you felt like, "Hey, I should continue on with this. I should pursue this and see how where it goes."
Really a lot of it came in the early days just from starting to listen to other creators more than just the bands that I was into at the time. So I went to go see Neil Gaiman on his Norse mythology tour. And one of the first lines he says to the crowd is writers write. And that kind of clicked in my head that I had been writing poetry, I'd been writing songs, I'd been writing all these things that were just kind of getting words out of the way. I never really thought of fiction or storytelling, but once I did, it opened up huge doors. And then getting into Scott Snyder's class through Substack and meeting the group that I did opened up that door where I got kind of the validation you were talking about through just the peers of, yeah, this story was good enough. Let's put it in the anthology. But then I was also checked kind of quick when my art was turned down. The artist that I hired, I kind of gave him a low ball, kind of like, let's just make this kind of a ragtag thing, and it kind of fell short for the label of Scott Snyder and what we were really shooting for in that anthology. So I redid it, and I got a different artist to come in, and it really kind of solidified just working in the medium of rolling with punches and working with editors that like believe in your story but also want to see it presented the best. And I love that aspect. I love that editors aren't there to just kind of, shoot everything down. They're really there to help you make it shine.
All right. So I kind of just got off track with my questioning. I found that really interesting, Aubrey, what you said about
Yeah.
validation.
Good. Yeah.
But what is a flag to fly about?
It's a really kind of youthful story, I guess I'm going to say, but it's a fun animation kind of feel to a growing up and looking for leadership, especially in the times that we have right now. A lot of people are looking for leaders. A lot of people are looking to be leaders, and kind of what that balance is, like what it is to really know that you're choosing a leader that represents you, that you're being yourself enough to be the leader for other people. These things are really important. And sometimes it kind of gets muddled, and sometimes we have to see it kind of play out. So in these characters, we get a really good example with Lane's character work, just how funny that could be, and just how much it can really get out of hand.
And what should current and new readers expect in upcoming issues if they decide to jump in and follow along with this 6-issue arc?
It's a sweet little adventure, really. Like the first kind of issue was just kind of a tiptoe into the world, and we see kind of the repercussions of what could happen in the world. Like we lost a character already. We've gone through kind of like there's real things at stake, but it's also really filled with jokes, really funny. Every corner that we can turn, we try to make it laugh, and through that, it's just kind of the next step of the adventure. The second one, we go farther into the island, which we're still kind of oblivious to. Like there's 3 other sections to go into with these next couple of issues, and the next one is just a giant marketplace, and we see kind of what's at play in that, of like who the hierarchy there is, and also just kind of what happens when a rebellion is trying to be started with these characters that aren't really the most proficient in what they're trying to do, as kind of all of them are avoiding leadership except for one who's really not meant for it.
And Aubrey, as I guess from your perspective as the editor on this project, what is it that draws you on this series?
So, one thing with issue 2, we talked a lot about how it reminds me a lot of like Avatar: The Last Airbender. Like it's got kind of those vibes to it, like in terms of that journey of like characters who are kind of thrown together. And I think I'm trying to think back to when Chris pitched me, I thought it would be fun. I thought it would be like I love Sword in the Stone. I love like Robin Hood, like those old Disney movies, and this had that vibe. I watched Game of Thrones. We don't talk about the last 2 seasons, you know. But I enjoyed all those media. I've always enjoyed fantasy. I've always enjoyed kind of the adventure stories, and I liked that it was a coming of age story too. Like because I think a lot of that kind of media shaped me as a younger person, and even now as an adult. Like I still enjoy watching those stories because you learn stuff about yourself. And I think it's easy to think we just come of age and become who we are, but I think we're constantly changing who we are and figuring it out and renegotiating with ourselves who we are. And I think like that's why stories like that are important to tell. So, and I don't know, I really enjoy working with Chris. Chris is really receptive to feedback, and so like that's always something an editor wants, is like someone who is willing to fight for their story with you, like to tell you like no, like there was one portion in here where I was like, hey, this doesn't make sense. You need like maybe we take it out. And he came back to me and was like, no, 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 I really want this. And I was like, cool, let's talk about how we can keep it in and make it like relevant to the story. Because like if it's something you want to fight for, I will fight for it with you. Like
Yeah.
meaning I'll help you. We will find a way to get this where it needs to be to stay in the story. And so like, I think that's the ideal client, is someone who will listen to feedback, but also like plant their feet when they really want something in the story.
Yeah. Definitely multiple points of view in the world is just something that I try to lean into all the time. Coming from punk rock and all the rest of that, it was always about a group coming together and trying to combine to make something a little bit better. And that's definitely the idea of having an editor on any kind of material working on it. Just make it shine a little bit more, make it a little bit better, connect with more people.
So based off of the high concept that you sent me, Chris, for a flag to fly, let me go ahead and pull that up real fast. So what you listen here is often our ideas of leadership mean finding someone to uphold our morale and societal views because subconsciously we believe we cannot live up to our own ideals. This story comically tries to explore what it is to confront the undesirable aspects of hero idealization when we try to inspire someone else to lead because we are afraid of the responsibility ourselves. With a comedic tone in a medieval soft fantasy world, we follow our characters into dealing with failure, betrayal, misplaced beliefs, and finally taking responsibility for what they believe. Um, do you both feel that it's easier, or that it may be easier in a way to portray these lessons and stories rather than provide real life anecdotes when it comes to younger audiences to understand?
Oh, by far. I mean, just in general, not just younger audiences, through all of it. I was just watching the history of sitcom and realizing that a lot of that progressive change comes about at exactly the time when progressive ideas were introduced and just the living sitcom of watching a family deal with struggles and realizing these people are just like us. So in that, like I grew up watching those. I grew up watching everything from Happy Days to Good Times, and that was so before my time that it still kind of resonated. It still made me feel like the Fresh Prince of Bel Air was just a step away. It was all just the stuff that made me feel like the world is accepting. But that was for me to feel like I accept everyone. And that's great. I love that kind of feel. Those stories really got me to that point.
I absolutely agree. Like you brought up the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and I like grew up watching that. And so like when Will Smith had kids, I was like, this is weird. This is like somebody. It feels like somebody I know having children, even though I know I do not like know Will Smith like that at all. But like they tackled a lot of interesting things, and I think children's media often, children and young adult media often does tackle a lot of interesting social issues, but it's portrayed in such a way that like we don't necessarily like my husband loves watching cartoons, and he's liked watching Bluey lately, and like they tackle a lot of interesting things. Like I don't know, I'm trying to think. I usually am just sitting in the room while it's playing, but they tackle a lot of interesting issues and things that kids, are trying to navigate. They're trying to navigate this world just as like we are, especially young people. Like there's so much going on in the world right now. And um the whole leadership thing, I think a lot of us don't think that we're able to be leaders, or we worry about being leaders because of either the responsibility, or maybe we don't see people in leadership that like are like us or look like us or feel like us in ways that, it goes back to that representation thing. To be it, sometimes you need to see it. And I think that that's important to tell these stories. I think it's important to um like I went to a workshop with Kelly Sue DeConnick, and she talked about the capital T truth. And I come back to that anytime I'm like thinking about what is the story we're trying to tell here? Like good stories resonate because they tell the truth. They may not tell the truth in the exact way that it's portrayed in reality. And even like um dialogue in stories isn't exactly how we talk in real life, things like that. It's because you have to like storytelling is a different art than telling reality in a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I'm just sitting here thinking of all the other sitcoms that I know of too that tell stories like, oh God, what's the one with Mr. Drummond and Willis? And
Oh,
Oh,
I know what you're talking about.
yeah.
it's the episode with of the bike shop where they talk about
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
that episode. Um and then like what is it? All in the Family when Edith is assaulted. I think it's one of the last episodes. And then just even the show Roseanne, at least it was when it was first on, just this
Yeah.
whole story of a blue collar white blue collar family, which a lot of times we didn't really see that because a lot of them most of the time are like rich or like middle class,
Some kind of up there because it was supposed to be
Yeah.
inspiring, supposedly. But yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Like that's why so many people gravitated towards, like you said, oh man, I'm blanking on the show we just talked
Yeah.
about. But also like Married with Children and all
Mhm.
the rest of those kind of slanted look at the family because that's what we actually grew up in. Like people that
Yeah.
crack jokes at you when you try to be proud of something, people that kind of shoot you down when you think that like, oh, I have something to really show you right now. It's like that. But like that made us laugh enough to like still carry ourselves just the same way those characters did and still be eccentric if we wanted to be and or just that other person of trying to shoot people down, which sadly a lot of kids did. But we've grown on, and now we're going to see better examples, especially like she said, Bluey. Bluey's huge on just really good exampling of how to navigate some of these really tough little things that we all have questions about. We all don't really know the best way to do it. We just kind of go out the way that we learn to survive. So it's good to have these just examples to see and have the ability to choose. Kids get to choose how they want to live. It's important.
Yeah, and I think it's just it's easier in a way because it's more digestible in a way when you convey it through some type of medium, whether it be
Story.
comics or a sitcom or whatever it may be. It's more digestible and it's in that short form, or maybe even like in a movie or something like that. And I don't know. I keep thinking of like it gives the happy ending in a way too, where a lot of people don't get in real life, and
A
you
lot of
still
times,
give
yeah.
yeah, you still give the lessons, but you still give them the happy ending that they want because they also they use entertainment as escapism in a way, but you still want to fit in that stuff that they need to know too.
Mhm.
So
Exactly. Gives them a safe space to like absorb those things and not
Mhm.
be challenged just out the gate. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So here's another question. It's like, it's silly and superficial, so just
Straight.
bear with me. But if you had the freedom to create your own flag for whatever it may be, it can be, for your city, your state, your country, it can be a club you're part of, it can be if you're playing like in a D&D game and your characters, this is their flag, this is their pirate flag or whatever. What would it be and why?
Oh,
I was trying to go
yeah, I'm
ahead.
already there.
Yeah.
So like I end up designing a lot of personal branding logos, and it always involves the color purple. It usually involves skulls because I just like skulls, and sometimes it involves like hearts or geometric. I really love the dynamic of like kind of darkness with beauty. So like flowers and skulls, things like that. Just I like that dynamic. And so a lot of times in my work, that's the thing that like I've designed us like I have stickers I've made with a skull with flowers on it. I have a little sticker that I just got printed that's over there that is a skull with a flower crown that says the horrors persist, but so do I. That like things like that. I don't know. Like that's probably it would probably have like dark purples, dark pinks, some black because I'm definitely an emo kid. Stuff like that. That's kind of where it would hit my soul.
Yep. Those are the old classics that I definitely. But yeah, I don't know. Coming from Southern California, I have a very big stoner kind of reference in my head, and now trying to come up with actual like designs for logos for an actual company. Because if you could later on see my socials, they're kind of scattered, and I'll be rebranding sometime to kind of solidify all that. But trying to come up with that logo to just be everything. I've come up with a nice planet being cracked in half while a spaceship flies away, and probably on a green field, just kind of big, maybe with a diamond kind of background, somewhere in that kind of feel.
Okay. Yeah, I like the idea of, darkness and with something of light. Instead of a skull, Aubrey, I think mine would be, I guess, the classic image of some type of carcass where it's like the rib cage, maybe laying in the grass, and through the ribs is like flowers that are
Love that.
blossoming out of it. Kind of like how people say the rose that grows the concrete or something like that. But instead of concrete, it's grass. So even in death, life still persists in a way.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah, I
beautiful.
like that.
I'm in Wyoming, so I'm about like 6 hours south of Yellowstone. And like I've had people when I talk about going, my parents love to go there. And when I talk about going up there and like seeing bears and wolves on carcasses and stuff, they're like, ew, gross. And I'm like, it's really fascinating. It's
Mhm.
interesting to see those things because it's the life cycle right before your eyes. Like something dies and something lives off of it, and then even smaller things like you'll usually get a bear on it, and then the wolves will come pick it clean, or the coyotes will come pick it clean, and then the the birds will come in, like the carrion birds will come in after that, like ravens. And so it's I mean, there's a beauty there too. Absolutely.
Exactly. So you both have created and completed multiple comics, graphic novels, what have you, over the years. What do you do with the work in progresses that you've, I guess, in your mind or in someone else's mind, you have abandoned? And what advice would you offer to other creators in regards to work in progresses or abandoned stories?
Don't truly abandon them. It's okay to move on,
Mhm.
but it's okay to also dig them back up and see what wasn't working for you at the time, or feels wrong, or felt different now that you've grown out of that space. It's always good to go back. I don't like A Fly to Fly was actually something from my very beginnings of thinking of stories, and it's grown huge, like compared to what it was, and just a little hero story that it could have been. It's now a full-blown concept that I'm super proud of. And those kind of things of just going back to, like, I don't know, like I've seen a meme recently of, let's not remake good films, let's remake good concepts that were horrible films. And like
Mhm.
that thing rings true to anything. Like if you have a good idea, you can present it well. It's just a matter of finding how to do that. So it's always just go back through your notebooks, go look through some stuff again. It doesn't have to be just given a blow.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think so I definitely think there are stories you can come back to. I've seen advice I can't remember if it's Gaiman or somebody else who talked about how I think there's also some advice from like one of the NPR hosts or something about how sometimes your skill level isn't ready to write the idea you want to write. And so I definitely think that there's some things that you just put in a drawer, keep your outline, keep it in your back pocket for later. I think Gaiman did talk about that with like The Ocean at the End of the Lane, that he wasn't ready to write that book when he had the idea. So he kept the idea and wrote it later when he had more skills to write it. But there are some things that like you don't need to write. Like um there's some books that I tried to write in my 20s that I'm like, I'd be embarrassed if I tried to write them again. Just because, like, maybe the story wasn't there, but maybe, like, I've grown a lot as a person. My understanding of narrative's a lot better. My characters were probably a lot more shallow, than they would be now. So, like, some things are okay to just chalk up to, like, this was me learning how to write,
Mhm.
not something that, like, I need. It's not a soul story for me. I don't need to come back to it later. Um, but maybe like, and there's still a possibility that like what I learned from, character A and B may appear down the line in story, W, like it still may come back to me, but it's probably not the same story that I was going to tell when I was 20 years old. So,
Mhm. I mean, has that ever happened, Aubrey, where you're editing work and just like how you told Chris, this doesn't work and he kind of fought for it, whereas someone else was like they listened to your advice and was like, yeah, we'll take it out, but then maybe somewhere down the line you recognized it again in something else?
I'm trying to think. I definitely I think we all kind of weave our themes through it. So like something may come back. Um I'm trying to think. Like I think we've definitely had conversations where like something that we see in an earlier script or something translates into a different idea later. Or I can't think of an exact example. And a lot of this stuff's still ongoing, so I couldn't necessarily talk about it, but I definitely see, um, I've definitely talked with some of the writers I work with continually about things that like, hey, maybe this doesn't work here, but you could save it for later. Or, hey, this doesn't work here. Can we translate it into, excuse me, something else?
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely.
Well, is there anything else that either of you wanted to share about a flag to fly to marketplace missteps, maybe the rewards for potential backers?
Yeah, definitely would like to highlight those, because there are some really great reward tiers for actual comic creators or people that want to be comic creators. Because coming from our background, where we just kind of took it upon ourselves to learn as much as we can, connect with whoever we can, and try to make comics the best way we can, we've offered a couple tiers that you can get an editing. Sorry, you can get editing. Like, now I'm just blanking on words. Sweet.
Feedback?
You can get editing feedback from Aubrey Lyn Jeppson, our editor. presented. And she kind of gives you 2 rounds of going over your script, going over your themes, kind of guiding you in the right direction. We've asked that that's no way connected to AI or not safe for work material, but any 10 to 22 page that you've been working on, you can bring it up and Aubrey Lyn will go ahead and jump on it.
Yeah. For me, like that's the way I work with clients too. And I also offer like an hour video call with that, so that we can like go over the notes and everything. Cause I always think it's best. Like it can be hard. I always get nervous with, especially even with people I work with regularly, that like I'm gonna come off as harsh, but it is my job to tell you what's wrong. So like video calls are good because like you can see my face, you can see my expressions, you can hear my tone. And even if that gets misconstrued, at least you're hearing me try to be like, I love it, but here's what we got to fix.
Then we also have a commission tier from Lane Lloyd, our interior artist, where you can kind of get anything that you want drawn in Lane style, which is, of course, spectacularly fantastic and really fun. But that also gives you the opportunity to any of the characters that you might want to do. You could ask them that commission. We had it in the last Kickstarter where somebody brought in their own characters to have the commission done by Rachel Disler, and that went really well. Yeah, it's other things are like we have our stickers came back. We have mini prints by our main artist Lane Lloyd, our variant artist Tara Huset. She did a fantastic variant cover with our newest character, the Merchant. Then there's also a mini print package that you can get as an add-on that has a Wren family portrait of Leon, Leong, and Eleanor by Paris Pornat, and that is just gorgeous work.
It's really beautiful.
Sorry, I'm just looking at everything
Good.
we have here. All right. So, will either of you, I guess, be at any cons this year? And like, where can people find you online?
Yeah, I'm trying to hit up Wyoming Comic Con. I'm gonna contact them and see if they're interested in me coming and paneling. But if they're not, I'm probably gonna just go as an attendee. And then I'm definitely going to be, I've got tickets for Salt Lake Comic Con, or no, it's not called Salt Lake Comic Con anymore. They got sued. It's FanX in Salt Lake City. It's more of a pop culture based con, but if you're out that way and you want to touch base, I'd love to see anybody. And then there's also Wasatch Comic Con down in Salt Lake City that I don't know when they're doing it yet, but if they do it this year, I'd love to attend. They're very creator focused. It's run by guys who run a comic shop out in Salt Lake City. I think they run like 2 or 3 comic shops at this point. So it's very much focused on comic creators, and I got a ton of good advice at panels there a few years ago. So definitely one to check out. And then on socials, I'm at Taming the Muse on pretty much everything where I want you to find me. So I don't really use Facebook for like work stuff, but I have had a few creators add me there. But like Twitter, Blue Sky, I think Threads, Instagram, same handle on everything.
Yeah, I would just kind of go to cons mostly as an attendee. So I'll be hitting up Latinx Comic Con. I think that's coming up at the Mocha at the end of the month. There is, I have tickets for LA Comic Con and probably trying to get into Long Beach Comic Con. Those are all at the end of the year. But yeah, you can find me. Probably the best way would be Linktree, link.tr.ee at slash the author Solis.
All right. Well, thank you again to writer c.solis and editor Aubrey Lyn Jeppson behind the A Flag to Fly comic series for joining us here today to promote issue number 2, Marketplace Missteps, now on Kickstarter until April 1st. All of C's and Aubrey's socials and the website, as he just said, will be listed in this episode's details alongside the Kickstarter link for those who are interested. Again, I am K.S. Garner, and you've been listening to the Solo Nerdbird podcast. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.